Hello, everyone. Welcome to this English speaking practice session designed to help you sound more natural, are fluent, and confident in everyday life. In this long listening podcast, you will hear daily routine English sentences that native speakers actually use from morning to night. You do not need to repeat out loud unless you want to. You can simply listen, relax, and let your brain absorb the rhythm, structure, and natural flow of real English. This practice works best when you stay with it for a long time. So, if you have just joined, stay with me. Before we begin, if you find this kind of long, realistic English helpful, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel English in Mastery. It helps the channel grow and allows us to keep creating high-quality listening practice like this for you. Now, let us ease into English the same way native speakers ease into their day. Imagine it is early morning. You wake up and the first thing you think is, I should get up soon. You might say, I am still half asleep. Or, I need a few more minutes. Many people say, I did not sleep very well. Or I slept like a rock. When you finally get out of bed, you might say, it is already late. Or, I still have some time. In the bathroom, you think in simple, automatic sentences, like, I need to brush my teeth. I should take a quick shower. Or the water is too cold. These are the kinds of sentences native speakers never think about. They just use them. As you get dressed, you might think, what should I wear today? Or this feels comfortable. If you are checking the weather, you might say, it looks like it is going to rain. Or it is colder than I expected. These small thoughts are part of daily English. They may seem simple, but they build real fluency. When you head to the kitchen, you might say, I am really hungry. Or, I am not that hungry yet. Some people say, I need my coffee first. Or I cannot function without coffee. While making breakfast, you may think, I will keep it simple. Or I do not have much time. If you eat quickly, you might say, I am eating on the go. Or I will grab something later. These are very common expressions in daily life. When you check your phone in the morning, you might say, I have a few messages. Or nothing important yet. You could think, I should reply later. Or I will deal with this after breakfast. If you are getting ready for work or school, you might say, I need to get going. Or, I should leave soon. If you are running late, you may say, I am running behind. Or, I need to hurry up. These phrases are natural and used every day. On your way out, you might think, did I lock the door? Or I almost forgot my keys. If you commute, you might say, traffic is really bad today. Or the bus is packed. Some people say, the commute is exhausting. Or it takes forever to get there. These are realistic thoughts that happen daily. While commuting, native speakers often think quietly, listening to music or podcasts, and saying things like, I will deal with that later. Or I have a lot to do today. When you arrive at work or school, you may say, I am finally here. Or that was a long trip. You greet people with simple phrases like, good morning. How is it going? Or hey, how are you doing? When someone asks how you are, you might respond, I am doing fine. Just a bit tired. Or, I am good. Thanks. These exchanges are short but important. They create connection. As the day begins, you might think, I need to check my emails. Or I should get started. When looking at your tasks, You may say, I have a busy day ahead, or today looks manageable. If something feels overwhelming, you might think, I will take it one step at a time. Native speakers often talk to themselves like this. When working, you might say, I will focus on this first, or I will finish this later. If something is unclear, you might think, I need to look into this, or I will ask about it. If you make a small mistake, you might say, that is my fault, or I will fix it. These sentences help you stay calm and productive. During a break, you might think, I need a short break, or I need to stretch a bit. When chatting casually, people say things like, it has been a long morning, or time is flying. These phrases help conversations feel relaxed. When lunchtime comes, you might say, I am starving, or I could eat anything right now. If you are deciding what to eat, you might think, what am I in the mood for? Or I will just grab something quick. While eating, people often say, this is pretty good, or it is not bad. These are very natural reactions. After lunch, you may feel tired and think, I am feeling sleepy, or I need another coffee. Native speakers commonly say, the afternoon slump is real, or I am losing energy. When getting back to work, you might say, let me get back to it, or I need to refocus. As the day goes on, you might think, I am making good progress, or this is taking longer than expected. These thoughts reflect real daily routines. If someone asks for help, you might say, sure, I can help with that, or give me a moment. If you cannot help right away, you might say, I am tied up right now, or I will get back to you later. These are polite and realistic responses. Toward the end of the day, you might think, I am almost done, or I cannot wait to go home. When you finish work, you may say, that is it for today, or I am calling it a day. As you head home, you might feel relief and think, it feels good to be done, or today was productive. If the day was stressful, you might think, I am exhausted, or I need to unwind. In the evening, you may say, I will take it easy tonight, or I do not feel like going out. At home, people often say, I need to relax, or I just want some quiet time. When deciding what to do, you might think, I will watch something, or I will scroll on my phone for a bit. These are honest, everyday thoughts. During dinner, people say, what should we eat tonight? Or I am not that hungry. If cooking feels like a chore, you might think, I do not feel like cooking. Or let us order in. After eating, you might say, I am full. Or that hit the spot. Later in the evening, you might think, I should prepare for tomorrow. Or I will do it in the morning. Before bed, people often say, I am really tired now, or I need to get some rest. When lying down, you might think, today went by fast, or tomorrow will be busy. As you close your eyes, your mind slows down and English becomes quieter, simpler, and more natural. This is how real English lives in daily routines, not in textbooks, but in small, repeated thoughts. Keep listening and let these sentences settle in naturally. As the next day begins, routines repeat but never feel exactly the same. And that is why daily English sounds so natural and flexible. When you wake up again, you might think, it is time to start the day, or I should get moving. Some mornings feel slow, and you tell yourself, I am not fully awake yet. Or, I need a moment. You might check the time and say, I woke up earlier than usual. Or, I overslept again. These sentences come automatically in real life. As you sit up, you might think, I should stretch a little. Or my body feels stiff. When you walk to the bathroom, you may notice the house is quiet, or it is still dark outside. While washing your face, people often think, this feels refreshing, or I needed that. When looking in the mirror, you might say, I look tired, or I need more sleep. These are honest thoughts that people have every day. As you choose your clothes, you may think, this works fine, or I will keep it casual today. If something feels uncomfortable, you might say, this does not feel right, or I should change. When you step outside, you might think, the air feels nice, or it is hotter than yesterday. People often comment to themselves, it is going to be a long day, or today feels promising. On the way to work or school, you may think, I hope traffic is not bad, or I hope I am not late. When delays happen, people say, this is frustrating, or of course, this happens today. These reactions are very common. While waiting, you might think, I will check my phone, or I will just wait it out. At work, when settling in, you might say, let me get organized, or I need to catch up. When reviewing tasks, you may think, this should not take long, or this will take some time. If something feels confusing, you might say, I need to look at this more closely. When things go smoothly, you might think, this is going well, or I am on track. During conversations, people use simple phrases like, that makes sense, or I see what you mean. If you agree, you might say, I feel the same way, or that sounds right. If you are unsure, you might say, I am not sure about that, or I need to think about it. These expressions help you stay engaged without pressure. When receiving instructions, people often think, I will remember that, or I should write this down. If you forget something, you might say, it slipped my mind, or I totally forgot. These are natural ways to acknowledge mistakes. As the morning turns into midday, people often think, time is flying, or it is already noon. When hunger kicks in, you might say, I am getting hungry, or I could use a break. During lunch, conversations stay light. People say things like, how is your day going? Or keeping busy. You might respond, it has been pretty busy, or not too bad. These exchanges are short but friendly. After lunch, as energy drops, people often think, I need to wake myself up, or this is the hardest part of the day. When refocusing, you might say, back to work, or let me finish this. If you feel distracted, you may think, I need to stay focused, or I will deal with this later. When something unexpected comes up, people say, I did not see that coming, or that was unexpected. If plans change, you might think, I will adjust, or that is fine. Flexibility is a big part of daily English. When helping someone, you might say, no problem, or happy to help. If you need help, you may say, could you give me a hand? Or can you help me with this? These phrases are polite and natural. As the afternoon continues, people often think, I am making progress, or I am almost there. When feeling pressure, You might say, I need to stay calm, or one thing at a time. Near the end of the day, thoughts shift. You might think, I am ready to wrap up, or I need to finish this first. When closing tasks, people say, that should do it, or this is good enough for now. When saying goodbye, you may say, see you tomorrow, or have a good evening. These small phrases mark the end of the workday. On the way home, you might think, it feels good to be done, or I am glad the day is over. If you are tired, you may say, I am worn out, or I need to rest. At home, routines slow down. You might think, I need to change clothes, or I want to get comfortable. When relaxing, people say, I just want to relax, or I need some downtime. These sentences reflect real life. When talking to family or friends, conversations are casual. People say, how was your day? Or anything interesting happen? You might reply, it was pretty normal, or nothing special. These responses are simple but real. In the evening, decisions are small. You may think, I will make something simple, or I will eat later. If you are watching something, you might say, this looks interesting, or I have seen this before. As the night goes on, people often think, I should get ready for bed, or I should not stay up too late. Before sleeping, you might say, I need to set my alarm, or I hope I wake up on time. As you lie down, your thoughts slow, and English becomes quiet again. These daily routine sentences repeat, day after day, shaping natural fluency without effort. Keep listening, and allow these patterns to become part of how you think and speak. As another routine unfolds, daily English continues to appear in small, practical thoughts that guide ordinary actions. In the morning, before fully starting the day, you might think, I should check my schedule, or I need to see what today looks like. When reviewing plans, people often say, it looks pretty full, or I do not have much planned. These quiet observations help organize the day. If there is an appointment, you might think, I should leave early, or I need to plan ahead. While getting ready, people say things like, I will keep it simple today, or I do not need to overthink it. These phrases reflect everyday decision-making. As you step outside, you may notice details and think, the air feels different today, or it feels more humid than usual. If you are walking, you might say, I will take the long way, or I should pick up the pace. When commuting, many people think, I hope I make it on time, or I should have left earlier. If something delays you, you may say, this is slowing me down, or that is annoying. These reactions are common and natural. Once you arrive, you might think, I made it just in time, or I barely made it. When settling in, people often say, let me get situated, or I need a moment to settle. As tasks begin, you might think, I will start with the easy stuff, or I should tackle this first. These thoughts help manage energy. If you feel motivated, you may say, I am feeling productive today, or I am in the zone. If motivation is low, you might think, I need to push through, or I will just do my best. These are honest inner dialogues. During conversations, people use short responses like, got it, sounds good, or that works. These phrases keep communication efficient. If clarification is needed, you may say, just to be clear, Or what do you mean by that? These expressions help avoid confusion. When multitasking, people often think, I need to focus, or one thing at a time. If interrupted, you might say, give me a second, or let me finish this. These are polite ways to manage attention. As the day progresses, people often check the time and think, where did the time go? Or it is already this late. When energy dips, you may say, I am running low on energy. Or I could use a break. Taking a pause. People think, I will stretch for a bit. Or, I need to clear my head. These habits are part of daily routines. When eating or drinking, people often say, this is exactly what I needed. Or, that hit the spot. If something is not satisfying, you might think, this is not doing much for me. These simple reactions are natural. After a break, people often say, back to it, or time to get moving again. If you feel refreshed, you may think, I feel better now, or that helped. If not, you might say, I am still feeling sluggish. As tasks continue, people often think, I am getting closer, or I still have a lot to do. When something takes longer than expected, you may say, this is dragging on, or this is taking forever. These phrases express mild frustration without drama. When you finish something, you might think, that is done, or one less thing to worry about. This sense of completion is satisfying. If someone checks in, you might say, I am working on it, or I will update you later. These responses are calm and professional. As the afternoon moves on, people often think, I need to stay on top of things, or I do not want to fall behind. When plans change, you may say, I will adjust, or I can work around that. Flexibility is key in daily life. If you receive good news, you might think, that is a relief, or that is good to hear. If something goes wrong, you may say, that is unfortunate, or that is not ideal. These reactions are measured and natural. Toward the end of the day, thoughts begin to slow. You might think, I am almost finished, or I just need to wrap a few things up. When organizing for tomorrow, people say, I will deal with this tomorrow, or I will leave this for later. These decisions help create balance. As you leave, you may think, it feels good to be done for the day, or I am glad to head out. On the way home, people often think, I need to decompress, or I just want to relax. These thoughts signal the shift from work to personal time. At home, routines continue quietly. You might think, I should put my things away, or I will do that later. When changing clothes, people say, this feels much better, or I needed this. These small comforts matter. In the evening, people often think, I will keep tonight low-key, or I do not feel like doing much. If plans come up, you might say, maybe another time, or I am not up for it tonight. These are natural ways to protect your energy. While eating dinner, people often say, this is simple but good, or it will do. After eating, you may think, I am satisfied, or I ate too much. These reactions are honest and common. Later in the evening, people often think, I should slow down now, or I will get ready for bed soon. If checking messages, you might say, I will reply tomorrow, or this can wait. These choices reflect priorities. Before sleeping, people often say, I need a good night's rest, or tomorrow is another busy day. As you settle into bed, your thoughts become softer and slower. Daily routine English fades into simple, familiar phrases that guide you gently toward rest. Listening to these patterns again and again allows your mind to absorb natural English without effort. Keep listening, and let these sentences become part of how you naturally think and speak every day. As routines continue day after day, English becomes a quiet companion that follows you through familiar moments. In the morning, once the day is fully underway, you might think, I need to stay on track today, or I should pace myself. When checking what needs to be done, people often say, I will handle this first, or I will deal with that later. These simple decisions shape how the day unfolds. If something feels urgent, you might think, this needs my attention, or I cannot put this off. When something can wait, you may say, this is not a priority right now. These thoughts happen naturally without effort. As you move through tasks, you might think, this is straightforward, or this is more complicated than I thought. If you feel confident, you may say, I have done this before, or I know how to handle this. If unsure, you might think, I need to double check, or I should ask someone. These inner conversations help guide action. During interactions, native speakers use calm, neutral phrases. They say things like, that should be fine, or let me know if anything changes. If confirming plans, you might say, just to confirm, or that works for me. These phrases keep communication smooth. If someone shares information, you might respond, good to know, or thanks for the update. These short responses show awareness and engagement. As time passes, you may check the clock and think, I am running a bit behind, or I still have time. If pressure builds, people often say, I need to focus, or I should block out distractions. When distractions appear, you might think, I will get back to this later, or I cannot deal with this right now. These choices help manage energy. When completing something successfully, you may think, that went better than expected, or I am glad that is done. When something does not go as planned, people often say, that did not work out, or I will try a different approach. These reactions are practical, not emotional. During short conversations, people often say, by the way, or speaking of which, to shift topics naturally. If returning to a task, you might think, where was I? Or let me pick this up again. These transitions feel natural and effortless. As the day moves toward midday, people often reflect and think, I am halfway through the day, or the morning flew by. When hunger returns, you might think, I could use something to eat, or I will eat later. If deciding to wait, you may say, I will hold off for now. When taking a pause, people often think, I need to step away for a moment, or I need some fresh air. These moments help reset the mind. After stepping back, you may think, that helped, or I feel clearer now. If it did not help, you might say, I am still feeling off. These honest reactions are part of daily language. When resuming work, people often say, let me get back into it, or time to refocus. If tasks begin to pile up, you might think, I need to prioritize, or I should break this down. Native speakers often think in this practical way. When collaborating, you may say, let us take a look at this, or we can work through it. These phrases invite cooperation without pressure. If something requires agreement, people often say, "That sounds reasonable," or "I am fine with that." These expressions show flexibility. When waiting for a response, you might think, "I will wait and see," or "I will follow up later." These phrases reflect patience. As the afternoon continues, energy often fluctuates. You might think, "I am feeling a bit drained," or "I need a change of pace." When pushing through, people say, "Almost there," or "Just a bit more." These phrases encourage persistence. If something finishes earlier than expected, you might think, "That was quicker than I thought." If delayed, you may say, "This is taking longer than planned." These observations are neutral and realistic. When reviewing progress, people often think, "I am making steady progress," or "I still have work to do." These thoughts help manage expectations. When a task is completed, you might think, "That is off my list," or "One step closer." These small wins matter. As the workday begins to wind down, people often think, "I should start wrapping things up," or "I will finish this tomorrow." When organizing, you might say, "I will tidy this up," or "I will leave this as is." These choices reflect balance. If reflecting on the day, people often think, "Today was productive," or "Today felt long." These reflections are personal and quiet. When leaving, you might say, "I am heading out," or "I will call it a day." These phrases mark closure. On the way home, people often think, "I need to decompress," or "I just want to switch off for a bit." If listening to something, you might say, "This helps me relax." At home, routines shift into personal time. You may think, "I will get comfortable," or "I need to unwind." When changing clothes, people often say, "This feels better." When sitting down, you might think, "Finally, some rest." These moments are simple but meaningful. In the evening, people often think, "I will keep things simple tonight," or "I do not feel like doing much." If deciding what to eat, you might say, "I will make something quick," or "I will order something." These are everyday choices. When eating, people often think, "This is enough," or "I could eat more." These thoughts are honest and natural. As the night progresses, people often think, "I should slow down," or "I do not want to stay up too late." When checking the time, you might say, "It is getting late." Before bed, people often think, "I need to get ready for tomorrow," or "I will deal with that in the morning." When lying down, thoughts soften and slow. English becomes quiet again, repeating familiar patterns that guide you gently into rest. These daily routine sentences build fluency not through effort, but through repetition and comfort. Keep listening and allow these natural expressions to settle into your mind, shaping how you think and speak in real life. As another day continues to unfold, routines repeat in slightly different ways, and English fits into those small changes without effort. When you wake up with a clearer mind, you might think, "Today feels manageable," or "I know what needs to be done." If the morning starts slowly, you may say, "I am easing into the day," or "I am taking it one step at a time." These phrases reflect calm control. When planning ahead, people often think, "I need to stay organized," or "I should keep things simple." If something unexpected comes up, you might say, "I did not see that coming," or "I will adjust as needed." These responses show flexibility. While moving through routine tasks, native speakers often think, "This is part of the process," or "This comes with the job." These thoughts help maintain perspective. When dealing with minor issues, you might say, "It is not a big deal," or "I can handle it." If something feels overwhelming, people often think, "I need to take a step back," or "I should not rush this." These are natural self-regulating phrases. During conversations, people use soft language to keep things smooth. They say, "Just a heads up," or "For your information." When sharing something important, if asking for clarity, you might say, "Just to be clear," or "Can you walk me through this?" These phrases reduce tension. When acknowledging others, people often say, "I appreciate that," or "Thanks for pointing that out." These responses build rapport. If something is unclear, you may think, "I need more context," or "I am missing something." These inner thoughts guide follow-up questions. When focusing deeply, people often think, "Let me concentrate for a moment," or "I need to clear my head." If interrupted, you might say, "Give me a second," or "Let me finish this quickly." These are polite and practical. As time moves forward, energy levels shift again. You might think, "I am starting to feel tired," or "I need a short break." If taking a break, people often say, "I will step away briefly." When returning, you may think, "I am back at it," or "Time to continue." These transitions are natural. When evaluating progress, people often think, "I am getting there," or "This is coming together." If something still feels incomplete, you might say, "This needs more work." These reflections keep expectations realistic. When collaborating, native speakers often use inclusive language. They say, "Let us go over this together," or "We can figure this out." These phrases invite teamwork. If agreeing, you might say, "That makes sense," or "I am on board with that." If not fully convinced, people often say, "I see your point, but I am not sure." This softens disagreement. When waiting for feedback, you might think, "I will see what they say," or "I will hear back soon." These thoughts reflect patience. As the afternoon fades, people often think, "I am losing focus," or "I need a reset." If choosing to push through, you might say, "I will power through this." If choosing to pause, people often say, "I will pick this up later." Both choices are normal. When tasks wrap up, you might think, "That is done for now," or "I will revisit this tomorrow." These phrases signal temporary closure. As evening approaches, routines shift again. You may think, "I need to switch gears," or "I am done for the day." If reflecting quietly, people often think, "Today was steady," or "Today had its moments." These thoughts are balanced and honest. When transitioning home, you might say, "I am heading back," or "I will be home soon." These phrases mark movement. At home, people often think, "I want something low effort," or "I just want to relax." When choosing how to spend time, you may say, "I will keep things light tonight." These decisions support rest. If scrolling or listening, you might think, "This is a nice distraction." As the night settles, people often think, "I should start winding down." When preparing for bed, you may say, "Time to call it a night." Thoughts slow and soften. English becomes gentle again, repeating familiar patterns that mirror daily life. By listening to these routine sentences, you absorb how native speakers think and speak naturally. Over time, these expressions become part of your inner voice, guiding you through everyday moments with ease and confidence. As the rhythm of daily life continues, routines begin to feel automatic, and the language people use becomes quieter and more efficient. In the early moments of a new task, native speakers often think, "Let me get started," or "I should ease into this." These phrases signal a gentle beginning. When checking details, people may say, "I want to make sure everything is in order," or "Let me double-check that." This reflects care and responsibility. If something takes longer than expected, you might think, "This is taking more time than I thought," or "I need to be patient with this." These thoughts help manage frustration. When adjusting expectations, people often say, "It does not have to be perfect," or "Good enough is fine." This mindset is common in real life. While multitasking, you might think, "I will handle this first, then move on." These small internal decisions guide the flow of the day. When switching tasks, native speakers often say, "On to the next thing," or "Let me shift focus." These transitions feel natural and unforced. If motivation dips, people often think, "I need to stay focused," or "just a little more effort." These phrases encourage persistence. When something finally works, you might think, "That did the trick," or "Glad that worked out." These reactions are simple and genuine. In conversations, people often soften their tone to stay polite and relaxed. They say, "Whenever you get a chance," or "No rush at all." These phrases reduce pressure. If requesting help, you might say, "Could you give me a hand?" or "Would you mind helping me with this?" These are everyday requests. When responding, people often say, "Sure, I can do that," or "Give me a moment." These replies are casual and cooperative. If plans change, you might think, "That is fine. I can adapt," or "We will play it by ear." These expressions show flexibility. When coordinating schedules, native speakers often say, "Let me check my calendar," or "I will let you know." These phrases are practical and widely used. If something conflicts, people often say, "That does not work for me," or "I have something else going on." These statements are clear but polite. As time passes, people check in with themselves. You might think, "How am I feeling right now?" or "Do I need a break?" These reflections help maintain balance. If choosing to slow down, people often say, "I am taking it easy today." This signals self-care. When energy returns, you may think, "I feel more alert now," or "I am ready to get back to it." These shifts are common throughout the day. When reviewing progress, native speakers often say, "I am making steady progress," or "This is moving along." These phrases are encouraging without exaggeration. If something still feels unresolved, you might think, "This is still up in the air." This expression shows uncertainty without stress. During routine communication, people often acknowledge others briefly. They say, "Sounds good," or "That works for me." These short responses keep conversations flowing. If confirming details, you might say, "Just to confirm," or "As we discussed." These phrases add clarity. When ending a conversation, native speakers often say, "I will catch up with you later," or "Talk soon." These closings are friendly and informal. As the day continues, people shift attention again. You might think, "I need to refocus," or "Let me get back on track." These internal reminders help maintain momentum. If distractions appear, people often think, I should put this aside for now. This shows self-awareness. When completing a task, you might say, that is taken care of, or one less thing to worry about. These expressions bring relief. If postponing something, native speakers often say, I will deal with that later. This is common and realistic. As afternoon turns into evening, routines slow naturally. You may think, I am starting to wind down, or my energy is fading. These thoughts reflect the body's rhythm. When deciding how to end the day, people often say, I will keep things simple tonight. This choice feels intentional. If reflecting quietly, you might think, today went by quickly, or it was a productive day. These reflections are personal and calm. When preparing for rest, native speakers often say, I need to unplug for a bit. This signals mental rest. If setting boundaries, people might say, I will pick this up tomorrow. This protects personal time. As night settles in, thoughts become softer. You might think, everything can wait until morning. This creates peace. The language used throughout these routines is not dramatic or complex. It is steady, familiar, and deeply human. By listening to these everyday sentences, you learn how English flows through real life without effort. Over time, these expressions become instinctive, helping you think, respond, and live more comfortably in English. One ordinary moment at a time. As routines repeat day after day, native speakers rely on simple language to keep life moving smoothly. When starting something slightly challenging, people often think, let me take this step by step, or I will figure it out as I go. These phrases reduce pressure and keep things manageable. If instructions are unclear, someone might say, let me read that again, or I want to be sure I understand. This careful approach is very common. When something feels unfamiliar, people often think, this will take some getting used to. This expression accepts change without resistance. If a mistake happens, native speakers rarely dramatize it. They think, that was my fault, or I will fix it. These responses show responsibility and calm. When correcting course, people often say, let me try that again, or I need a different approach. These phrases signal flexibility. If progress feels slow, you might think, I am getting there, or this takes time. These thoughts help maintain patience. During everyday conversations, people often soften opinions. They say, I think it might be better to, or from my point of view. These phrases keep discussions respectful. If disagreeing gently, someone might say, I see it a bit differently, or I am not sure about that. This avoids conflict while staying honest. When agreeing, people often say, that makes sense, or I agree with you. These responses feel natural and supportive. If unsure, native speakers frequently say, I am not completely sure, or I need to think about it. These expressions allow space to decide. When giving updates, people often say, here is where things stand, or this is what I have so far. These phrases organize information clearly. If waiting on others, someone might think, I am still waiting to hear back. This reflects a common work and life situation. When things are delayed, people often say, it is taking longer than expected. This explains without blame. If adjusting plans, native speakers often say, let us be flexible, or we can adjust if needed. These expressions show adaptability. During busy moments, people might think, I need to prioritize, or what is most important right now. These thoughts guide decisions. If overwhelmed, someone may think, I need to take a breath. This simple phrase helps reset emotions. When calming down, people often say, it is under control, or I can handle this. These words restore confidence. In everyday requests, native speakers use softeners. They say, when you have a moment, or if it is not too much trouble. These phrases sound polite and natural. When responding positively, people often say, no problem at all, or happy to help. These replies feel friendly. If declining, someone might say, I am not able to right now, or I will have to pass this time. These expressions are clear but respectful. As conversations flow, people often signal understanding. They say, I get what you mean, or I know what you are saying. These phrases build connection. If clarification is needed, native speakers often ask, what do you mean by that? Or, could you explain a bit more? These questions keep communication smooth. When summarizing, people often say, so basically, or, in other words. These phrases help organize thoughts. If transitioning topics, someone might say, by the way, or, speaking of which. These are natural shifts in conversation. During routine check-ins, people often ask, how is everything going? Or how have things been? These questions are friendly and open. When responding, someone might say, things are going well, or it has been busy lately. These answers are common and honest. If something feels repetitive, people often think, same old routine. This phrase reflects familiarity. When routines change, someone might think, this is a nice change of pace. This shows appreciation for variety. As the day continues, people manage energy carefully. You might think, I need to pace myself, or I should not rush this. These thoughts prevent burnout. If taking a short pause, people often say, I will take a quick break. This sounds natural and accepted. When returning, someone might think, all right, back to it. This signals readiness. As tasks come to an end, people often reflect quietly. They think, that went smoother than expected, or that was more work than I thought. These reflections help adjust expectations. When learning from experience, native speakers often say, now I know, or lesson learned. These phrases are simple but meaningful. As evening approaches, conversations slow and soften. People might say, it has been a long day. This shared feeling creates connection. When planning ahead, someone may think, I will deal with this tomorrow. This allows rest without guilt. The language used in these moments is not formal or rehearsed. It is practical, flexible, and deeply connected to real life. By absorbing these sentences, you train your mind to move naturally through English. Not by translating, but by thinking the way native speakers do throughout their everyday routines. As daily routines settle into a familiar rhythm, native speakers rely even more on instinctive language to navigate small moments. When preparing for something routine, people often think, I will get this ready first, or let me take care of this now. These phrases reflect quiet planning. If something unexpected comes up, someone might think, I did not see that coming. This reaction is honest and common. When adjusting quickly, people often say, let me work around it. This shows flexibility without complaint. If something feels inconvenient, native speakers may think, That is a bit of a hassle. But I will manage. This balance of realism and acceptance appears often in daily life. When prioritizing tasks, people frequently say, "This can wait," or "This needs attention now." These simple decisions guide the day. If concentration slips, someone might think, "I need to clear my head." This phrase signals a mental reset. When regaining focus, people often say, "Okay, back on track." This short sentence restores momentum. During casual communication, native speakers often keep things light. They say, "Just checking in," or "Quick update." These phrases sound relaxed and friendly. If reassurance is needed, someone might say, "Everything is fine," or "We are all set." These expressions reduce worry. When something is almost finished, people often think, "I am nearly done." This gives a sense of progress. If wrapping up, someone may say, "I will finish this up." This sounds natural and efficient. In shared tasks, native speakers often acknowledge effort. They say, "Thanks for taking care of that," or "I appreciate it." These phrases strengthen cooperation. If help is offered, people often respond, "That would be great," or "I could use that." These replies feel genuine. When reflecting briefly, someone might think, "That worked out well." This simple thought reinforces confidence. If something did not go as planned, people often say, "It did not go exactly as planned." This expression is neutral and realistic. When learning from it, someone may think, "I will keep that in mind next time." This shows growth without self-criticism. In everyday discussions, people often soften transitions. They say, "On a related note," or "While we are at it." These phrases keep conversations flowing smoothly. If someone needs time, they often say, "Let me think about it for a moment." This creates space without awkwardness. When decisions are made, people might say, "That works for me." This confirms agreement simply. If circumstances change, native speakers often say, "Plans can change." This mindset accepts uncertainty calmly. When checking progress later, someone may think, "How is this coming along?" This question feels natural and practical. If things are stable, people often say, "Everything is moving along." This reassures without exaggeration. As the day moves forward, people manage expectations quietly. They think, "I will do what I can today." This reduces pressure. If tiredness sets in, someone may think, "I am running low on energy." This honest acknowledgement is common. When choosing to slow down, people often say, "I will take it easy for now." This signals care for oneself. In conversations toward the evening, language becomes gentler. People say, "No worries," or "Take your time." These phrases reflect a slower pace. If something can wait, someone might say, "It is not urgent." This helps set boundaries. When closing tasks, people often think, "That is enough for today." This creates a sense of closure. As routines repeat, these everyday sentences shape how native speakers think and respond without effort. Listening to this kind of language trains your ear to recognize natural patterns, helping English feel less like a subject to study and more like a part of daily life, flowing quietly from one routine moment to the next. As the day continues, everyday language becomes even more subtle and automatic. Native speakers often talk themselves through small actions without noticing it. When reaching for something, you might think, "Where did I put that?" Or, "Let me grab this real quick." These phrases reflect spontaneous thought. If something is misplaced, People often say, "It has to be around here somewhere." This shows mild uncertainty, without stress. When finding it, someone might think, "There it is." This reaction is brief and natural. If preparing to leave, people often say, "Let me get ready," or "I will head out soon." These phrases are common in daily routines. When checking the time, someone might think, "I am running a bit late," or "I still have time." These thoughts guide pacing. If delayed, people often say, "I will be there shortly." This reassures others. During transit, native speakers often comment internally. They think, "Traffic is heavier than usual," or "The roads are clear today." These observations are everyday language. If waiting, someone might say, "I will hang tight." This phrase sounds casual and relaxed. When arriving, people often say, "I just got in," or "I am here now." These statements are simple and functional. In social interactions, native speakers often keep things low pressure. They say, "Feel free to join," or "It is totally up to you." These phrases respect choice. If someone declines, people often respond, "No problem at all." This keeps the tone friendly. When settling into a space, someone might think, "Let me get comfortable." This phrase is quiet and personal. If adjusting temperature or lighting, people often say, "Is this okay for you?" This shows consideration. When sharing space, native speakers often use soft requests. They say, "Do you mind if I?" or "Would it be okay to?" These expressions are polite and natural. If permission is given, someone may respond, "Go ahead." This reply is brief and clear. When something is noticeable, people often comment lightly. They say, "It feels a bit chilly," or "It is pretty quiet today." These observations help start or maintain conversation. If responding, someone might say, "Yeah, I noticed that too." This builds connection. In routine exchanges, native speakers often use fillers naturally. They say, "You know," or "I mean." These words soften speech and make it sound more natural. When thinking aloud, someone might say, "Let me see." This phrase buys time. If deciding, people often say, "I think I will go with this." This signals a choice without drama. When adjusting plans slightly, someone might say, "I might switch things around." This shows flexibility. If things are simple, people often think, "This should be quick." This sets expectations. When something takes longer, they may think, "This is dragging on a bit." This expresses mild impatience. In moments of waiting, people often distract themselves. They think, "I will check this while I wait." This reflects real behavior. When attention returns, someone might think, "Where was I?" This is very common. As the day moves toward evening, language becomes slower and more relaxed. People often say, "I am starting to feel tired." This acknowledges fatigue. If choosing rest, someone might think, "I will take a break from everything." This phrase feels intentional. When deciding to stop for the day, people often say, "I will call it a day." This signals closure. If reflecting quietly, someone may think, "Today was pretty full." This simple thought captures experience without detail. As routines repeat, these small phrases form the backbone of natural English. By hearing them again and again, your mind begins to recognize patterns, helping you respond instinctively in real conversations. Without translating, without forcing, and without effort. Just as native speakers do in their everyday routines. As daily routines reach their later stages, language often turns inward and reflective. Native speakers begin to slow both their movements and their words. When finishing remaining tasks, people often think, I will wrap this up, or let me finish this quickly. These phrases signal a desire for closure. If something feels unresolved, someone might think, I will come back to this later. This removes pressure without forgetting. When reviewing what has been done, people often say, that covers everything, or I think I got it all. These statements bring reassurance. If unsure, someone may think, I might have missed something. This quiet doubt is common. When checking one last time, people often say, let me take a final look. This shows care. As evening settles in, conversations soften naturally. People often say, how was your day? This simple question opens space for connection. When answering, someone might say, it was pretty busy, or it went by fast. These responses are honest and familiar. If the day was heavy, people may say, it was a long day. This phrase carries shared understanding. When shifting into personal time, native speakers often think, I am done for the day. This mental shift is important. If choosing rest, someone might say, I just want to relax. This expresses a basic human need. When deciding how to spend the evening, people often think, I will keep it low-key. This phrase suggests simplicity and calm. If energy allows, someone may think, I might catch up on a few things. This feels optional, not forced. In casual evening conversations, native speakers often reassure others. They say, take it easy, or get some rest. These phrases show care. When plans are postponed, people often say, we can do it another time. This keeps relationships flexible. As night approaches, routines become quieter. People often think, I need to slow down. This reflects the body's rhythm. If screens are put away, someone might say, I am logging off. This signals a boundary between work and rest. When reflecting privately, native speakers often think, today was not bad, or I did my best. These thoughts are gentle and forgiving. If something went wrong, people may think, tomorrow is another day. This phrase resets perspective. As preparation for sleep begins, language becomes minimal. People often say, I am getting ready for bed. This is straightforward and calm. If tiredness is strong, someone might think, I can barely keep my eyes open. This expression is vivid but common. When ending conversations at night, native speakers often say, good night, or talk tomorrow. These closings feel warm and natural. As silence settles, thoughts slow further. People often think, everything can wait until tomorrow. This creates mental space. The language of these moments is simple, repetitive, and deeply real. By listening to and absorbing these everyday sentences, you train your mind to experience English the way native speakers do, as a quiet companion throughout the day, flowing naturally from morning routines to nighttime reflections, without effort and without translation. As the day finally settles into stillness, language becomes quieter, almost invisible, yet it continues to guide thought. Native speakers rarely announce the end of their routines. They simply feel it. When everything slows, people often think, it is time to rest, or I am done for tonight. These phrases are not dramatic. They are calm and accepting. If reflecting gently, someone might think, today was enough. This simple sentence carries balance. When letting go of unfinished thoughts, People often say, I will leave it there. This helps the mind release tension. As surroundings grow quiet, native speakers often notice small details. They think, it is quiet now. Or, everything feels calmer. These observations ground the moment. If comfort is needed, someone might think, I just want to be comfortable. This is deeply human. When preparing to sleep, people often say, I need to get some rest. This phrase signals care for the body. If thoughts are still active, someone might think, my mind needs to slow down. This awareness comes naturally. When choosing to disconnect, people often say, I am turning everything off. This creates a boundary between the day and rest. As silence deepens, language becomes minimal, thoughts shorten. People may think, it is okay, or everything is fine. These phrases reassure without explanation. If worries appear, someone might think, it can wait until morning. This sentence protects peace. When settling into bed, native speakers often think, this feels good. This quiet satisfaction is common. If sleep does not come immediately, people rarely force it. They think, I will just lie here for a bit. This relaxed attitude helps the body unwind. As breathing slows, thoughts fade, language dissolves into feeling, and yet, all the sentences used throughout the day have done their work. They guided decisions, softened interactions, reduced pressure, and created flow. This is how English lives in real life. Not as isolated phrases to memorize, but as a steady stream that moves with the rhythm of ordinary moments. By listening to these sentences again and again, you are not just learning words. You are training your mind to think calmly, respond naturally, and exist comfortably in English. Over time, these patterns become familiar. You stop translating. You stop searching. You simply know what to say, and when to say it. This is real fluency. Not fast, not loud, not perfect, but natural, quiet, and deeply connected to daily life. As this listening practice comes to an end, allow the language to stay with you. Let it settle the way the day settles. Gently, without effort. You do not need to remember everything. Just let the rhythm sink in. Each time you listen, your understanding deepens. Each time you return, your confidence grows. And, slowly, without pressure, English becomes part of your routine. Just like these moments, flowing easily from one day into the next.